Hey guys, I am back and I wanted to do a part 2 video to the They Locked Me Up video. If you didn't see it, I was just basically saying, I got sent to a mental institution after I had, I'm demonstrative, after I had had a manic episode. And I was saying, actually in a speaking engagement the other night to some students for a mental health awareness group on campus, that mania looks different from everyone. And I was trying my best to explain it. Some people like me are excessively hyper and frantic, thoughts racing a mile a minute, the pace of my speech was just maybe off the charts, and all these different emotions going on. It's an emotional response to some situations. Sometimes it's not triggered by anything, and that's regardless of what mental illness you have. So I explained that in that video, and I will link it in the description box below. Today I want to talk about the other piece of that. What happens once you are transferred to a mental health facility from the hospital, more than likely the ER, or hell, sometimes even prison, but in my case, let's just say from the ER. Now, once you are transferred from or sent to, you can walk yourself in there, but once you are taken to a mental health facility, and I live in North Carolina, so I went to Holy Hell Hospital, Holy Hell Hospital in Raleigh from UNC Hospital. But once you are transported there, the green light came from either what they call the Baker Act, where basically a physician determines that you're a danger to yourself or society, and I'm not, and determines that you need at least a 72-hour stay in a mental health facility. Kind of like what you saw in the old movies, the guys in the white coats coming to put somebody in a straitjacket. You are going to the equivalent, I guess, of today's asylum. I will also put in the description box just a little bit of information about the horrid history of mental health hospitals in this country, where everyone who was different from the quote-unquote norm was thrown, whether you had developmental disability, a learning disability, some genetic disorder, a mental health issue, you're thrown away and you're treated like trash. And unfortunately, it's like that in a lot of parts of the world, and even in the U.S., you may not be sleeping on a bare cement floor anymore with rats running around you and laying in your own waste, but you are still locked away. So you can either be Baker acted, or this cute little process called adjudication, which is pretty much the same thing. The doctor in that case, at least when I ended up in an institution 5-6 years ago, got a court order. The magistrate signed off on it, and he determined that I would be better off in a facility that was specifically designed for mental health treatment and not substance abuse, where I was, because again, they like to lump everybody together, no matter what's wrong with you. So the day that I was told I would go home, I was also told, or I was told afterwards, that I was going to go over to Holy Hell. Holy Hell, what have you. And that's what happened. During the transport, at least here in North Carolina, you are taken in handcuffs and basically shackled and escorted by a sheriff. Okay, and they say they do that as standard practice for everyone across the board, regardless of the mild or severity of your illness, for safety reasons. The stigma against people with mental illnesses is unreal. And now, because we keep having school shooters and lately bombers, one after the other, the free world associates mental illness with violence. It's just synonymous in a lot of people's minds. No matter what I say on this channel or in public, people will always buy into the fear-mongering of the media and associate mental illness with violence, when the truth of the matter is mentally ill people are more likely to be victims of crime, because we're scoffed at, we're invalidated, we're beaten up, we're criminalized for something a lot of times we can't help, we're thrown in jails, blah, 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 rather than being perpetrators of crime. What you see in the media is that less than 5% or that less than 10% that are severely mentally ill or not, and experiencing psychosis. The other 90-something% of us are just trying to live every damn day. I'm serious. We're out here, either using our disability checks. A lot of us get some type of disability check to just pay bills and take care of ourselves, or we're going to school, or we're going to work, we're taking care of families. We're not just all bouncing around off walls, walking around committing crimes. That's TV. Stop watching TV. That's the percentage. But if that's all you see, you're going to think that's all that's out here. Just like the cop videos going around. If that's all you see, you're going to think they're all bad cops. But anyway, my point was this, and I said this to some elected officials here in North Carolina several years ago. If I have, spent a couple of days being treated, although they deemed that I needed more help afterwards. But if I spent a couple of days being treated, at the hospital, nice fancy word for sleeping all day and being doped up on meds all day, how am I a threat to myself or society? You have to be awake to get on anyone's nerves. You have to be halfway coherent to, verbalize a threat. You just have to be able to function and be some type of, harm to yourself or others. So that was a piece of it. And then the other piece that I was asking the sheriff who transferred me from UNC over to Holy Hell, I said, okay, you have me handcuffed. You have me in the back seat of a vehicle, and I'm 5'9", 5'10", somewhere around there. You have me in the back seat of a vehicle that has limited leg room, 3 cameras, a bulletproof glass in between us, and you're a big fat man with a loaded weapon. How am I posing a threat? This is how we get treated. We're locked up like animals, and we are, detained like criminals and treated like criminals. Okay, so what I want people to get out of this is understanding how involuntary commitment work. Now, granted, I went to UNC Hospital's emergency room because I couldn't calm down. The mania was all over the place. Didn't hurt myself, didn't hurt anybody. I, didn't tear up any property. Again, stop watching TV. Mania looks different for everyone. I said, I just need to stabilize. I just need to calm down. I can't function. Blah, 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 blah. And I'm all over the place. Okay, so they dope me up with meds. I stay there for 2 days. I calm down. I'm fine. Release me to the care of my psychiatrist, which they did not. Then when they sent me over to Holy Hell, they kept me beyond the 72 hours. Matter of fact, for a total of a week, and told my psychiatrist for no reason whatsoever, or they didn't give her a reason whatsoever why they were keeping me. I was being held against my will, and that is illegal. This is how we get treated. The other piece of that is when you are involuntarily committed, a lot of times people with illnesses they really are hesitant, reluctant to go and seek help because of this very same reason. They know you're about to buy yourself about a good 8, 9, 10 days in somebody's institution, locked away like an animal. You don't get fixed. You're not getting any real therapy. You're just being kept away from people so you can calm down. And most of the people in these institutions don't need therapists. You have that small number who do, but they need social workers. Seriously, you have people with problems. You don't just wake up like this. It's genetic, it's environmental, it's trauma, it's so many reasons why mental illnesses develop, and again, not talking about psychosis, just everyday life. We've had natural disasters, we've had wars, we've had budget cuts with every presidential election. Then there's nowhere to really put people, especially in an inpatient unit for short stay, and let them continue their healing or their recovery in their community, outpatient, where they can visit friends, they can visit family, they can visit clergy, what Dr. Nancy Boyd Franklin calls the multi-systems approach, not just being locked away. It's been documented too much over and over and over again that institutionalization does not work. So, okay, I get over to Holy Hell, and it's a locked unit, and maybe it was like 20 of us on that floor. We were on an acute unit because we're all seen as a danger. And once you're on paper, publicly, as a danger to yourself and society, it's going to take one hell of an attorney to get that expunged off your records. To date, I haven't been able to do it. They still see me as a danger, even though to me this was a fluke, because I had been seeing my therapist just about every week 6 years ago. I'm not. I was on about 15 different medications 6 years ago. I'm not. You know, I see her every 3 weeks and I'm on 2 beds. So, and I hadn't been, you know, locked up or locked away in about 5.5 years or 4.5 years, something like that. And I just say, look at my progress. Apparently something triggered. And that's okay, because it can be helped, it can be managed. We need coping skills. Again, it starts small. We all have a backstory. And let me say this for people who still have it in their mind about school shooters. The vast majority of people with various mental illnesses, again, we need coping skills. It starts small. Racism and hatred are not mental illnesses, okay? So let's get away from that cop-out of blaming every crime on folks with mental illness. And so I know I'm all over the place here, but I get fired up about this because I'm tired of the way we're treated. We have rights. I'm a person, not a disease. I get over there and it's the usual. They take your belt, they take your bra, they take your shoelaces, anything that can be used as a weapon. They take the scrunchie, they tell you hand it over. Eventually you can have maybe a family member, a friend or something to bring you a bra and some flip-flops so you're not walking around in hospital socks, but you cannot have underwire for obvious reasons. You can't have products with alcohol, whether that's hair lotion, shampoo, body lotion, mouthwash, whatever. You can't have any of that stuff because people with substance abuse issues will consume things that are non-alcoholic or non-powdery substances just to get a high. So across the board, you can't have all this stuff. You check in there, then, at least at Holy Hell, they do a visual check of your body, not a cavity check. But, after they take your stuff and, take your weight, your vitals, and all that jazz, just to get you settled in your room, they'll give you your gown, and they'll have a nurse or a tech or someone of the same gender who will come in and do a visual check. You're damn near naked, you're in your little undies, hopefully you have some on, and they want to look for bruising, any signs of abuse, even self-harm, cutting, burning, because not everybody cuts or burns on their arms. So you get in there and they tell you that you will be there for 72 hours, and more than likely not more than likely, but there's a possibility, is what I was told, that you'll get to go home. So the smart thing to do is don't aggravate the staff. Don't, ask for too many things. Who knows? I need an extra toothbrush. I need this. I need that. Don't hang around the desk and make them feel uncomfortable. Don't bother anyone. Just act like your good old normal self. And I'm telling you, I went to the hospital here in Chapel Hill on Tuesday. I got, Baker acted basically over to Holy Hell on Thursday. And that was the morning, like I said, I was feeling fine. They kept me anyway. Friday, I was feeling fine. They kept me anyway. Now, your basic day over there goes like this. 6:30 in the morning, you get up. You're supposed to shower. I can't function that early in the damn morning. I'm used to sleeping until about 10. So I showered after lunch. But basically, you get up at 6:30, you shower, and you get morning meds, you lollygag a little bit, watch TV, what have you. You go to breakfast. You come back and you sit in group therapy where, the social worker or some other therapist, intern, somebody is facilitating a group where you're supposed to share and open up your, share your feelings and open up about things to help you get into the practice of being, one, mindful and aware of what's going on with you, and two, not keeping it bottled up. It's kind of like the second cousin to emotion regulation and distress tolerance or distress avoidance and all that psychobabble terms. So you're sitting there and you could easily not say anything. It's seriously, it's AA meeting style. And to keep yourself from going nutty, not because you're deranged or anything, you're just bored as all hell. You may say sit at the table in that same room and color, or I won't say paint. No, we couldn't paint. But You sit there and color, do puzzles, play Uno. Then after that, you lollygag a little bit more, and you'll get mid-morning meds if you're on meds, you know, more than one time a day. I was just on my seizure meds in the morning and then meds at night. So after therapy, you go to lunch, you come back, you lollygag some more, you do an activity, you may go outside for fresh air time, which I think is necessary. And I just call it fresh air time. It's a contained space in between, you know, a very small quad of buildings where you can just run out on the turf and just get some fresh air for once. Or they have a gym, which is really a huge basketball court. And you can walk, you can, you know, get on the yoga mat, do floor exercises. There's a row of tables, you know, they have a little bag of nail polish. You can do your nails. It's the small things that just make you feel human again. It is inhumane just to have people locked away with no human contact. It's having hair products for black girl hair and not the combs that's this big and a little teeny packet of petroleum jelly. Thank God one of the nurses had a secret stash of some grease. The girl pulled out a bottle of Blue Magic. I couldn't believe it. And then I was able to cornrow my hair because I felt filthy walking around with unshaved pits and my hair uncombed. You know, it's the stuff people don't think about. So if you don't have fresh air time or gym time, you find something to do. The therapist meets with everyone, just like the doctor meets with everyone for 4 minutes. I'm serious, I counted some days in the mornings. Okay, so then after you lollygag a little bit more, have some afternoon time, then you go to dinner. Then after you go to dinner, you come back and you basically watch TV, you sleep. For those who did not nap during group because it was so boring, and the door to your room is locked at that time to keep you from just languishing and laying in bed sleeping all day. Now that I understand. Still, you are up at 6:30, so by 11 o'clock you really don't want to hear anybody's group. Where was I? Dinner. Okay, you come back and they have a little lounge. They actually have a lounge on both sides of the hallway, and all the bedrooms are, you know, in the middle. And there's a TV in each one. They also have a thing of lemonade and a thing of coffee that you can ask the nurses to make. Now we were just drinking it all day. It was probably decaf, so because we were bored. By day 3, you're banging your head against the wall. And again, a lot of people there, they need social workers. They have problems in their life that are non-medical, that exacerbate their illness, myself included, except that, you know, once I got my disability back in 2012, things were looking up for me. I was no longer homeless. I was no longer going out without therapy. I was no longer, you know, being the guinea pig on different medications. I eventually bought a car. I started taking graduate courses, getting blah, 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 blah. A lot of people that I met there just a few weeks ago was still in that before situation, you know, when everything was going wrong. You had a guy who was walking around talking about the spaceship on the roof of his building that he and I think Batman were flying, and they pay attention to everything, what you say, what you do, the only thing I noticed, the staff wasn't peeking in your journal to see what you were writing, and everybody gets a journal when you get in there. They're really, really big about getting your feelings out and journaling so you can see patterns in your behavior. But anywho, this fool was just walking around saying stupid shit just so he could extend his stay, because he knows when he gets out of there, he's going to be homeless. So being in the institution was just a way for him to have 3 hots in the cot and a good shower every morning. It's sad. You had another woman who was walking around frantic because she too was in a homeless situation, and the social worker was just, she had lost everything. I can't remember if it was a fire or a foreclosure or something, but she lost everything. So she's dealing with the depression from that and trauma from that. We're all traumatized in some way, you know, for some reasons, not just military vets. Trauma doesn't care how you got traumatized. It can just affect you, and everyone has, you know, a different boiling point temperature. We just do. What might, you know, send someone, if you will, over the edge may not affect me in that way. As something as small seemingly as weight loss for me, and that would trigger me, may not affect another person that way. But she was just walking around frantic, working with the social worker every day, calling all over the state to see if there was a room available in a boarding house or in a shelter. Then you have this one guy who really wanted custody of, or at least wanted to see, his 8-month-old baby boy. That picture was beautiful. This dude was, 18, and had a gram a day habit. Who's paying for that? Heroin. He said he gets it for free. I'm not sure how, but he said he gets it for free. And he was just trying to numb the pain, again, because he wanted to see his baby boy. This is the stuff I keep telling him about. How does your body build up that much resistance? And from what I understand, it's like $100. So who's paying for this? Okay, and he had a history of cutting. Then you had another guy on the hall who just decided that he wants to go down the hall and have sex with someone, again, to extend his stay, but for a different reason. He didn't want to go back to the abusive situation that he was dealing with people at home. They need social workers. They don't need therapists. This is what happens. So yeah, I was locked away at Holy Hell, and then one day they decided to say, okay, it's time for you to go home now. We believe that, you're not a danger to yourself and not society, and that you're stable enough at home. At least they care what happens to you when you're released. We just want to make sure you have good social support. You'll hear that word often. And that once you get out of here, you're able to see your therapist, or that, hell, you even have a therapist. They want to make sure that you are well emotionally enough to move forward. Now, what they did, I was supposed to get out of there. I went in there on a Thursday. I could possibly have gone home Monday. Follow me here. My appointment with my psychiatrist wasn't until Thursday. And I already knew that's where they were going. It's kind of like when you're released from the hospital and they give you a prescription for whatever they have you on for the number of days between then your next doctor's appointment. Or sometimes they'll give you enough for a couple of days just so you will make a doctor's appointment. They know what they're doing. And I get a monthly shot. Like I said, I'm on an antipsychotic, not because I have a psychotic disorder, but it helps me with racing thoughts. It's kind of like having enough built up in your system in case you get that manic. A 4x4 gauze when you really need a Band-Aid, that type of thing. And I was supposed to get that shot on that Thursday. And as the days were going on, Monday I'm not going home, Tuesday I'm not going home. I said, okay, I see what they're doing. Wednesday, they gave me the shot. And then Thursday, I was able to see my psychiatrist. And I went there, and we had a good little conversation. I said, what did they tell you? She said, they didn't really tell me anything. I don't know why they kept you. I told y'all this was retaliation for the book I wrote about UNC, but that's a different story. Not all of the hospitals there or all of the doctors there. It's just the psych team that I can't stand. I've been in and out of that psych ward, behavioral unit since 2011 for different reasons, and like I said, I think 2013 or 14 was the last time I was there. So that's basically what happens. A judge or a doctor feels that you're a threat, and then they will say that you have to go over to some other facility, or you can stay right there in that facility, except for UNC didn't have any beds. You'll hear that a lot. We're at capacity, we don't have any beds. So you'll either be stuck in the ER waiting to get help, or sometimes you can leave AMA against medical advice if the doctor didn't determine that you needed to be elsewhere. If you walk into a hospital voluntarily, you can leave. Still, the doctor has the last word, but it's easier for you to leave AMA and then say, I don't need to be here, versus trying to do that when a doctor says, okay, you're going to be involuntarily committed. Again, it's going to take an act of Congress, and literally, in order for this stuff to change. And got all decked out in my handcuffs, went over to Holy Hell, was bored to death for about 8 days, saw, some really sad people. One guy was talking about he misses his autistic frog. I saw another one who was really, really delusional. He needed to be there. He was snapping on everybody. He was fighting. He, came in there with a black eye. He was kicked out of the house by his mom. I'm seeing more and more fragile people and emotionally distraught people, just distressed and broken, sitting on a ledge somewhere. Foods, okay, food was actually halfway decent. There just wasn't a lot of options for vegan and vegetarians. Y'all know me with my low carb, low fat, low sodium, low sugar diet. So I was really trying to eat vegetarian as much as possible. Now, if you tell the doctor I'm on a certain diet, they did really well with accommodating people, and they'll, tell the kitchen to give you double portions. So they told me I can get double protein, vegetables, and fresh fruit. I didn't want double protein because I didn't want, I didn't want beans every single meal, and usually it was rice and beans mixed up. See, they thought they were Jamaican or something, but it was rice and beans mixed up. And I certainly didn't want veggie burgers every day because I said soy free. But they did allow a girlfriend of mine to bring me my vegan protein shakes that I like, the Orgain. You've seen the Orgain video. Visiting hours. Visiting hours was tough because they only allot an hour. That's the difference between here and UNC. They only give you an hour, literally, maybe 3 or 4 days a week. And they say that is to accommodate, like 9 floors and all the patients and having staff, to monitor. And I understand all that, but again, and to be honest, that was the day that I cried. You don't know what it feels like to see other people getting visitors, but you don't. I'm having to ask the nurse to go into the safe to get my phone so that, one, I could write down phone numbers and remember who to call. And let me see, the first of the month, for me to get my wallet so that I could pay bills. It was a lot to deal with. A girlfriend of mine came from, I don't know where, but it's hard when, you live about 30 some odd exits away and you go to try to squeeze an hour out of your time to go see someone in traffic, whether that's rush hour traffic because they did have an afternoon window, or that's weekend traffic because they did, and she tried to come on a Saturday, and she said by the time she sat in line, because it was a long line of family members, everybody's trying to get there for that 1 hour, and she got to the window and they told her, I'm sorry, visiting hours are over. Yeah, that got to me. I broke down. You have no idea what that feels like. I saw a principal and 2 teachers come to visit a girl because her family never came to visit her. I saw this guy's, the same guy that had the Grandma Day habit. His parents drove 7 hours to come see him, and because of traffic, they got there after visiting hours, and they were given permission to see him, but they were only able to see him for 15 minutes. You're thrown away. And you're easily forgotten about. You get used to there not being clocks on the wall in the room. You get used to somebody coming in there disturbing you every 15 minutes because they want to make sure you're still alive. You get used to the shower shutting on and off. It's not like you just turn it on, it just flows. It shuts on and off on its own. You have to keep pressing the button to get more water out. Like I said, I was walking around feeling filthy because I had hairy pits. And, well, not that hairy, but hairy enough. And my hair was all over the place. And actually, the nurse cornrowed my hair, or one of the techs. It's simple things like that people just don't think about. I went to, I went to the nurse, and she said, I can give you a razor because, you didn't present any kind of symptoms of self-harm. So we'll give you the razor, and I have to stand by the door. There really is no door to your shower. It's a curtain. And then, of course, the shower curtain. So she's standing there while I'm using the razor. That lack of privacy, the overcrowding, it's just a lot of things you get used to. And, of course, there are people who leave there and they're going to be homeless and won't have anywhere to work or can't work or something like that. You have wonderful people like Kellyanne Conway who would say, oh, just go get a job that offers insurance. Hell, you have people who aren't homeless that can't find a job with insurance or can't find a job. It's not just as easy as saying, oh, well, get up and go find a job. A lot of homeless people are mentally ill because that situation drove them there, or they were mentally ill beforehand. I keep telling you, if you ain't crazy at the beginning of this, you will be at the end. It just wears, and it's emotionally traumatizing. It takes a year or more to get out of homelessness for a whole bunch of different reasons. You have a lot of people behind bars who are mentally ill because, Prisons have become our biggest hospitals. You have some people just for 3 hots in a cot will commit a petty crime because they at least know they'll get their meds. And the racing thoughts or the voices or whatever is going on in their head can finally stop. A lot of the people who are mentally ill behind bars are there for petty crimes. You know, again, they stole a tampon because it's that time of the month. The things people don't think about. They dined and dashed with their last dollar that they had, or they sat around and loitered in restaurants waiting to see if somebody's not going to finish their food. They got a trespassing charge because they went to a building to keep warm. I mean, any number of things. Y'all just, oh, my brain. You know, and add to that, you know, we've had natural disasters and recession and one crisis after another. The whole freaking world is just traumatized. This is how mental illnesses develop. These reasons right here. It's everyday life. Again, stop watching TV and expecting somebody to run down the street with a butcher knife. You know, you have the depression, you have the worry, you have the anxiety, and we have a maniacal 2-year-old running the country, so it is likely to get worse. He already basically made a database that a lot of clinicians used for resources. It was like over 400 resources in there. Yeah, he basically canceled that, fired the staff who was running it, and it was, it's not good. It's not good. You can still find the information online, but there's no longer, it's no longer updated. And it had, you know, therapies and doctors and specialists and hospitals, and it was, you know, this database was updated, and it hasn't been since September, you know, because 45 just decided that wasn't necessary anymore. So I guess Health and Human Services got the email that, you know, we don't need to spend time and money keeping up this database. You know, people will complain that mental illness is a problem, lock them all away. We've seen that that hasn't worked and it's making people worse, but we cut funds in order to, you know, create programs and, again, that community inclusion, not behind bars, that will help people. You know, we have the stigma against people against mental illnesses, but we'd rather pour billions of dollars into other diseases, not saying they aren't equally as important, but we'll pour money in telethons and paint the town pink, blue, purple, and all these other colors, but not give that attention towards people with mental illnesses. Folks with mental illnesses are blamed for every damn thing, but instead of trying to help folks, we figure that we you know, feed into the fear-mongering to make illnesses worse. You have trigger-happy cops out here. Now, I mean, yeah, they have the Crisis Intervention Team Training Program, you know, the CIT program, but still, people with mental illnesses are the target. Can't complain that there is a problem, but you won't do anything to fix it. A lot of us need help, you know, many of us need social workers. Okay, I'm done. This is how the mentally ill gets treated, and being locked away, you know, in some institution doesn't make it any better. I was there for an anxiety attack, you know. What about the people who were there because they were really hearing voices and talking about spaceships on the roof and all this jazz? It's one complex prong in this thing after another, and it just builds. So that was my experience at Holy Hell. And again, I'm going to leave a link for you to watch about, you know, what institutions were like in this country, and in a lot of places you still have Nurse Ratched, unfortunately, and people aren't getting the care that they should. So somebody get this video over to Verla Insco, I think she's retired now, Congressman Price, what's his Senator Price, Valerie Fouché, and who else? All of our North Carolina elected officials. We have to do something about this. Leave me any kind of questions you want. Find me on lower social media, AJ Wright Mental, WRITE. And we'll have a discussion. I'm doing better, I guess. All right, wellness wishes. That's enough for me. Bye, guys. I'm done.